Hello and welcome to the first episode of Sales and Pepper Interviews. My name is Dominic and I'm your podcast host. Today I've invited Niklas Joensen. He's the country manager of Bolt in Denmark, and he's talking with us about his mental health problems he experienced in the past and what you can do to avoid a burnout. So enjoy the first episode and welcome Niklas.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here as well. So as you say, my name is Niklas. I'm a country manager for Bolt in Denmark. I work with our mobility products. I live here in Copenhagen, as said, and been working in startups for the last 6 or so years. Been in some different types of roles and organizations, but I think common for me is some type of hyper growth startup role, which is where I enjoy working. So that's where I am. And I'm from Denmark originally, and love to work from here with a lot of talented people together with the current Bolt team in Copenhagen.
That's nice. I know that you're quite happy at Bolt at the moment, but we also had a little chat beforehand, and you told me a little bit about your past. And I think what would be super interesting as well for our listeners is just to get to know, like, how did you make it? How did you manage it to become a country leader at Bolt? I think that's super interesting and inspiring.
Yeah, so I can just take a few steps back, right? But basically, I studied innovation and entrepreneurship at Copenhagen Business School, and when I was done with that, it was a very startup-focused master's degree, right? That's really what we were all focusing on. Everybody wanted to be an entrepreneur and join a startup at the time. I joined a software startup right after graduation, so that's pretty much where I learned the ropes of startup land, right? It was early stage company. I was probably still quite junior, to be honest. I got a lot of responsibility quite quick, and so during those 2+ years I was there, I gained a lot of experience with all the different functions and roles that you can have in a software startup company that's growing, right? A little bit unpredictably, I ended up at Lime when Lime came to the Nordics in 2019, and for me, I was like seeing it as an opportunity that could be really big, right? For me personally, I was looking at Lime and thinking, could it be something like early days Uber, for example, right? So
Yeah.
I was pretty psyched to join. This is back when scooters was quite early in much of Europe, right? But it was a bit like the craze was starting to happen. But yeah, anyway, I had a ton of responsibility in that role as well. I had a manager, of course. He was pretty far away because he was also building and launching rest of Europe, right? So I had to build a lot of the stuff, the operations from scratch, basically myself. But Lime was a big company with a lot of learnings from other markets, so you could also always rely on that. But I pretty much felt like I had no clue how to do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit overwhelming, right? I had pretty high expectations for myself, also because I saw this as a big opportunity, right? Early in my startup career, basically. And I think personally, I have a bit of chip on my shoulder, right? I want to prove myself, basically. So even though I was quite overwhelmed, I just said, let's do it, push through, like you don't know how to do it, but just figure it out, seek help, try. Luckily, I was surrounded by quite good people, not just in my own market, but also colleagues from other countries, colleagues from other cities. So there was help to get, but you pretty much, as a operations manager or general manager, as I was later, was sitting with the responsibility yourself. So
Niklas, one question to
scooters,
that, because
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's super interesting, because a lot of people leaving the university, I think it's always like this, right? They're like super excited their first jobs, and I'm also having a startup background right now. So what I feel like is Did you had a mentor, something like some kind of a mentor in your early career? Because I think that's something what's really helpful to move forward
Mm.
fast in your career.
Yeah, I agree, and I've had, let's say, mentors, right? But before I even started working with startups, I was actually in politics. I was studying politics as well, and there was a guy that, he was a bit older than me. I was working with him, for him, in this political party, and I actually looked up to him a lot. And so he's been one of my, say, main sparring partners, right? Throughout my career, I leveraged him a lot when I was in doubt about something, and he could always give me some guidance because he was always a bit further ahead in his career, right? So he's been listening to a lot of my worries and complaints, and was always able to maybe, ask the right question for how to proceed further, right?
Yeah,
So it's good to have somebody a little bit more senior, a little bit more mature and experienced to look up to, for sure. But then, of course, in Lime, I actually had a lot of peers that were, very good to, help each other. Like, we reached out to each other across this network of countries that we were working in. So you didn't have anything to do with, let's say, Germany operations when you were in Denmark. Not really, right? But there was good people there dealing with some of the same issues, challenges, right? So you could both leverage each other's experiences, but also just, maybe just ventilate and, actually share those frustrations when you had that as well. So
yeah.
that was something I utilized a lot, as well. I think that's quite key, right? So you don't sit with it all alone, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I think it's super important that if you have colleagues you can rely on. I also feel this right now here at Pleo. We have a ton of talent here at Pleo, and it's super exciting also to talk to colleagues in other countries and learn from their experience. I think that's helping a lot in the day-to-day business as well. I remember,
And I think
like, yeah,
ultimately, I think that this is actually the role of your manager, right? In most cases, I would say, if you have a great manager, that person will be able to give you a lot of that, right? That's not always the case, right? Doesn't mean you have a bad manager, right? Could also be your manager have, too much to do. It can be many things, right? But if you are able to have a good manager, that person can be that guide and mentor, right? And I think
absolutely,
that's, yeah, something I strive for myself, at least.
absolutely. I was working at Park Now. I don't know if you know this company. It's also a mobility company for mobile payments for your parking tickets. So I'm quite used to your scene, to the mobility sector. And I remember 2019, all these different companies popping up, right? And I felt like it was kind of a like sprint for all those companies because you had to be fast. Everyone wants to be first in the market. Um, I like how was it at this time? I can imagine it was quite stressful as well, right?
Yeah, so I think we had this saying, a lot of us, at least the people I engaged with a lot, that we were sprinting a marathon, right? I think scooters is a very intensive industry still today, but especially in the early days, right? We had less systems. The software was not as reliable. We didn't know exactly what to do, right? It's like you can't just rely on best practice from a ton of other experiences because nobody really did this, right? There was something with bikes already, but scooters was quite different. The hardware was not optimal from day one. There's a lot of things that had to be figured out, right? And actually, yeah, you're right. It was so competitive, and everybody wanted to scale. And I think, during the first year, we grew Lime, for example, in Nordics a lot. I'm sure this is true for many other regions as well and other companies. And when I thought about this the other day, I was like, how fast did we actually do it? So I think we launched 4 countries in the Nordics and 8 cities in the first 6 months I was there.
Wow.
And I remember doing it. I was like, wow, it was intensive, right? But when I had to think about it the other day, I was like, wow, this is actually, it's quite a lot, to be honest, right? We were not a ton of people responsible for doing that, right? But we built up a pretty significant market in very short time. So yeah, the first year was intense, especially the first 6 months. But yeah, I mean, it was a good time. I learned a lot, but I was also a bit worn out. Then at one point, I've been at Lime almost a couple of years here, which almost feel like 2 years is maybe like dog years, right? So it feels exponentially more. But I got the opportunity to join this company from Sweden. It's a dark kitchen, ghost kitchen startup called Curb Food. They were looking for somebody to join, help them run operations in Denmark, open up new restaurants. And so I joined them. During the pandemic, I think actually we entered into the second lockdown in Copenhagen, right when I joined, I think. And my first task was, together with some of the team in Sweden, of course, to open up a restaurant in Copenhagen. And we did that. I think it took about 2.5 months, and it was a bit tricky during the lockdown, but we made it work. Got the team, the kitchen in place, everything. So very, very intensive journey as well. And I really loved this company. I liked the team a lot. I was really passionate about this product that we're bringing to the market. But somewhat short time into this role, I felt like there was something off, with myself, and I didn't get it in the beginning, to be honest. But I could feel like I wasn't really performing like I should. I wasn't in a great mood. I started having sleep issues. Classic warning signs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't take it. It's not like I didn't take it serious, but I don't think I had like the connection between what it was, symptoms of, and that reality of understanding what it was. But I figured out, that I had to take some time off, right? I was probably quite exhausted.
Yeah, like you had a manager role back then, right? Did you have the feeling that you are like you're not allowed to take your time off because you're a manager and you're a role model? And because I think like a lot of people, especially in COVID times, are struggling right now, like with mental health, right? And I think sometimes I have the feeling that leaders or people in senior positions think they have to be strong. They have to show that they can take the workload. And I think that's the wrong sign, because then what does it like show to their team is they think they have to be strong as well, and it's not okay to take your time off. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think the leadership at Curb Food was very supportive, right? And when I started realizing I needed time off, I got all the encouragement and support that I needed. So hands down, they handled it really well. I think for me, it's probably my mindset that was the reason here, that already from earlier days, especially during my time at Lime, I went all in all the time. And I think it's like it was a bit black and white. Either I was all in or it would be nothing, right? And I don't think I took any vacation days like the first 12 months at Lime, right? That was probably not a good idea, right? And I wasn't really setting good boundaries for myself. I was working constantly. And, like I said, scooters is an intensive industry. Your phone is ringing all the time. Your Slack is pinging all the time. And there's a lot of crisis, right? And you got to deal with that constantly. And so I think, those years I was at Lime probably put me a little bit high up in the alert mode, right? So I'm not surprised that I had to stop and take some time off when I was at Curb. Looking back, right? And what I contemplated while taking a quite long summer and figuring out what to do, and what was the reason behind I ended up in that place where I felt like I had to take a step back, was it's quite basic stuff actually. I like I said, I didn't take vacations. I think that's a mistake. You got to take some time off once in a while and reset, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get bored, right? Enjoy yourself, whatever. Just take some time off. I didn't even take the weekends, right? So I think it's quite simple to figure out what you like as a person, I was seeing a therapist at the time because I wanted to take it seriously and rebound, stronger than where I was. And she asked me this question one day. She was like, "What actually makes you happy?" Right? Just try to write it down. I was like, okay, fair enough. That's interesting exercise. I'm gonna write it down. And there was nothing crazy on that list. It was like, spending time with family, cooking a meal, right? Having a walk in the sun, going to the gym, working out, all those really basic stuff. And I just remembered, doing that. How did I actually do those things? Did I do those things enough the last couple of years? And it was quite easy for me to see, no, I didn't, right? So if I didn't do all those things that outside of work, also would make me happy, right? Make me reset and be myself. Maybe it made quite a lot of sense that I was burned out, right, at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was a strong learning for me. Just continue to implement those things in your life that gives you that, happiness and relaxation. Then I think you can still have a challenging and demanding work life, right? But you gotta balance it a little bit, just a little bit at least.
Absolutely. I would totally agree on this point, because I think what you just mentioned is actually, it sounds very simple, but actually it's not, right? So you need to take the time, sit down and think about what actually makes me happy. And then sometimes it's what you just mentioned is it's so easy, right? Just cooking a meal. But if you do it on purpose and you think, okay, now I'm doing this because this makes me happy, something changes compared to if you just cook it every day and you don't think about it. So if you do it proactively, it's different.
No, yeah, I agree. It's the classic saying of be in the moment, right? Be present and conscious, basically, about what you're doing, right? Instead of being mindless and just stay in this momentum phase, right, where you just keep going. So I luckily rebounded after a good long summer, much quicker than I thought I would. And that was great. No, I was very happy about that. And it was an amazing time off as well. So after a rough start, taking some time off, sleeping a lot and, figuring out what to do, I rebounded and I, felt my happiness quite fast. So I was ready to go back into work, right? And I was not scared about rejoining a startup. I think this is where my passion is, right? I like companies that are on a path to building something, right? Creating something in the world, right? And working with talented and driven people. That's my passion, work-wise. I got the opportunity to join Bolt, and I know some people at Bolt. I had great discussions with people there. So I figured out I was quite aligned with what they're doing, how they're going about things, and I like the manager and the company a lot. So I joined. And actually, during the interviews,
can I ask a question to that point? Because what I think is interesting, like after you take time off and you decide, okay, now I want to start working again, how open were you with this like difficult time for yourself with your new employer?
So actually, I shared it, right? I shared it with Bolt, and I told them why did my 2021 work year look like it did, right? What made me leave the company I was in? I had been there a short time, right? Why was there a little gap, you can say, right, in my employment? And I told them about it, and they took it quite serious. I remember one of the people I interviewed with, he asked me, what did I learn from it, right? Personally. And I didn't feel like it was a cause for rejection from them, right? And of course, I got the job, so it wasn't. But I think it says a lot about them and the culture that they look at me from the position I was standing at the current time, and they obviously estimated that I would be ready to jump into this role, which I am, and I was. And also, they weren't discouraged by me sharing that, right? And I think some companies probably would. To be honest, I might even I would have a second thought about it myself if I met a candidate saying the same, right? I got to be honest. It's something that would maybe reflect on: is this the right job for this person at this time, right? But I think it says a lot. It's a strong support and encouragement to get, at least. And I was happy to jump back in, right? So I think they made the right call, and I think I did as well. So that's a good outcome of that, right?
Absolutely.
But I think, why we're talking about this as well now is I think it's good that people do actually speak about these things. And I do feel like it's more common now. There was a lot of talk about, COVID burnout, stuff like that the last couple of years. There's been this, the great resignation, people leaving their jobs for all kinds of reasons because they were maybe not, willing to be in the hamster wheel or whatever, right? So it's been kind of like a big topic for a while. But I still think it's good to share with people when you can that it's, natural, it happens, can happen for anybody. And personally, when I was off and I spoke to people about it, kind of anybody, I met with a lot of very senior people, anything from, people that could be country manager or people that were CEOs, and everybody that I talked to had this like experience, right? Dealt with it in different ways, but I figured out I wasn't really that alone with it. It's quite common. So I think there's ways to deal with that, and I think that's why it's relevant to share this story as well, right?
I think it's super important, and I think this is a very powerful message as well, because especially more junior people maybe sometimes struggling because they don't want to open up because they don't feel it's a safe surrounding, and I think that's why it's super important. People like you in more senior roles and more leadership positions to open up about this topic, and also even if they're not struggling in themselves, to give the opportunity that people are opening up and talk about it and take it serious. What you just mentioned, I think that's super important.
And also, it's a chance to nip things in the bud, right? So to say, deal with it before it becomes a big issue, right? There's still part of me that contemplates what also made me leave Lime, for example, right? Was part of my desire to go for a new thing, also because maybe I did feel I was a bit burnt out, but I didn't really acknowledge it at the time, right? Mm-hmm. If I had acknowledged it and realized it, worked with myself in a different way, would I ever hadn't gotten there, right? So obviously great learning to get personally, hard way to get it. Doubtful. That's something I would have loved to avoid, but coming out stronger on the other side at least. So I think that's my bottom line.
That's cool. Do you have any tips or something like especially for our audience here? I think what's always super interesting, because we both work in very like high performing, very fast scaling companies. Do you have any habits, any tooling you like to use, and like what people help getting better in their career?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially for this topic, right? What helped me a lot was, and this is gonna sound so bland, but meditation and journaling actually, because I think a lot of times people sometimes that are in the situation where they're just going and going, and maybe it's a bit too high momentum, right? They don't really stop and check their gut feeling of how they are, right? Maybe they don't have the mental capacity to actually reflect on it. I found that meditation gives that, but combined with journaling, actually just like forcing yourself to write down your thoughts. And it can be a bit strange in the beginning, to be honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know, sometimes the words come out and it's just, I write something that I didn't even know I was thinking. And other times I feel like I have to try hard to come down with something on the paper, right? But it's quite, I think it's a quite good exercise, because it forces you to first, feel how you are. And then it forces you to reflect, like, on that feeling as well, right? And put it into words. You don't have to do it every day. Do it twice a week, something like that. Get it started, basically. You don't have to sit down and meditate for 2 hours, right? It could be 10 minutes, it's fine. So there's easy ways to go about it, right?
I think most people actually are doing it already, right? They, every time at New Year's Eve, they write down what they want to achieve in the rest of the year. The problem is they don't look at the list the rest of the year. But I think,
and
do you have any book or something like something like specific you can recommend in this? Because I tried to find some journal for me, but I think most of them I tried didn't really work out for me, because I don't know, I didn't like the questions and stuff, and so I tried to write my own journal,
Right.
to make it like that it's fit. How are you handling this?
Well, I don't have a book recommendation for this, but actually the way I think to go about journaling is quite different from person to person, right? And the way I tackle it is I just write whatever comes to mind, and I do it right after meditation. And I feel like this gives me the best, right? Sometimes I write journal when I didn't meditate, and it's a bit more of a struggle somehow. But I also know people that have, more kind of like stringent methods for it, maybe, where you write down, an intention for the day, right? Like, what would you like to accomplish today?
Yeah.
That can be personally, right? You want to be a better dad, right? Or it could be professionally as well. That's really up to you. And also maybe try to reflect, if you write journal at the end of the day, were you a good version of yourself today, right? Were you happy today, right? So you can put in some questions, right, that are key for you, maybe individually, right, to get answered. And I think that's a way to structure it a bit more if the free flowing journaling is too complicated, right?
And I think it's
But
always good to
actually,
break it
on a
down
broader
into
level,
small steps, right? So you have it
yeah,
not just to write down, I want to be a better dad, but what does it actually mean to be a better dad, right? What for
yeah.
myself. Yeah.
But I think on a broader level, and maybe this is for some a bit too far, I actually work with OKRs for myself, right? So many
Nice.
companies work with OKRs, framework for setting, goals and figuring out what targets you're gonna hit, right? And I actually use it on a personal level. So I have an
That's
OKR
cool.
sheet for myself. Yeah, I update it once a week. It's quarterly based. I have different things and categories, right? So I have some personal goals. I have some financial goals. It's different, right? But actually, that's a way for me to actually structure it very
That's super
stringent.
interesting.
Yeah, it's quite recent I started doing that, but it works. If you want to get a new habit of reading, for example, having an actual goal of how much you want to read every week and following up on that puts you in a mindset, right? Oh, did I actually read? No, I'm gonna read a bit, right? So it
Yeah,
actually gets you to do the actions that fulfills the targets and the objective you want to anyway.
that's cool. Niklas, we're already like half an hour talking, so thank you very much for your time. It was super interesting, and I think you can inspire a lot of people with your story. Thank you so much, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Take care.
Das war eine weitere Folge von Sales & Pepper Interviews. Wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat, freue ich mich über eine gute Bewertung von dir und damit du keine Folge mehr in Zukunft verpasst, einfach den Podcast abonnieren. Alle Infos zur Folge und Links zu Büchern findest du in den Shownotes und ich freue mich auf ein baldiges Wiedereinschalten von dir.